In our first episode, we arrived in the bustling city of Hanoi, picked up our motorbike, and after a day of exploration, we kicked off our journey across Vietnam. Heading north, our first major stop was the town of Ha Giang, where we spent a night before tackling the famous Ha Giang Loop. Then we continued to Yen Minh, a small village where we ended our day at a homestay. In the second episode, we pushed deeper into northern Vietnam, journeying from the rugged beauty of Yen Minh towards the northernmost tip of the country, Lung Cou, with its famous flag tower. From there, we'll weave our way to the historic town of Dong Van, immersing ourselves in its rich heritage before making our way to the serene waters of Ba Be Lake. This was our second homestay along the Ha Giang Loop. The awesome family that manages it, the delicious food they prepared for us, and the magnificent views made this an amazing place to stay at. As we woke up pretty late, the only thing we managed to do this morning was take some drone shots, after which we drove off towards our next destination, the flag tower of Lung Cou. Without even realizing it, because we were surrounded by so much beauty, we stopped at the Ma Pilang Pass, considered one of the most beautiful in Vietnam. On the way to Lung Cou, I've decided to surprise my wife by stopping at this palace I've seen along the route. We left our homestay at around 9 a.m. and we're now at the palace of the Hmong King. It's a nice little place. It costs 30,000 dong to get in. It's an interesting little piece of history. Basically, this was the Hmong King. He was, I think, in pretty good terms with the French, and then he also got all of his fortune from opium. And there's even a room here where all the opium was stored. Then, obviously, with the communists coming to power, there was no more Hmong King, but this place remains here. And until 2004, his family or descendants of his family basically still lived here. And since 2004, it's just a site of national interest, so a museum in a way. And from what I've heard, the lady who sells the tickets is the great-great-great-granddaughter of the Hmong King. Yeah, it's a nice little stop. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's in between the mountains. There's beautiful scenery, and the architecture is also pretty unique. It looks kind of like a Chinese palace. Anyway, now we are going to move further. We're going to Lung Cou, which is the very northern border of Vietnam with China, and see the flag tower there. Once we've explored that for a little bit, we'll go to, where are we going? We're going to Meo Vac, I think. Before going to Lung Cou, we actually stopped at a little restaurant that has a really nice view. Let me show you. This is the restaurant, and then check out the view. Here we are in Lung Cou, the northernmost point of Vietnam. After parking our bike, all we had to do was climb the 389 steps to get to the flag tower. And just a few more steps to get to the very top of the tower.
We're just leaving Lung Ku after going to the very top of the tower. We've seen China actually from where we were. And now we are on our way to our hotel. Yeah, so Lung Ku, definitely worth the visit, I think. Probably not the place where you're gonna spend hours, but you know, going to the very top of the tower, looking at China, is a pretty fun thing to do. Also for us, it kind of marked the beginning of the journey in a way. So yeah, we've been on the road for 2 or 3 days now, but from now on we're going south because we're at the very north of Vietnam, and now the road to Ho Chi Minh begins. Definitely go do the Ha Giang Loop if you have the opportunity. We're not done with it. We're still continuing the Ha Giang Loop for the next 2 or 3 days. I think the plan is today we're sleeping in Meo Vac, and eventually we want to go to Ba Be Lake. After Ba Be Lake, we're not exactly sure where we're going yet, but that's, I think, part of the beauty of this trip is, you know, you kind of plan the trip along the way. It's not really worth planning the trip too far ahead because, I mean, I think before coming here and driving for a few hours, you're not sure how long you'll last, because 100 kilometers here is a lot different than 100 kilometers on the roads you're used to seeing in Europe or maybe North America or something like that. So I'd say, yeah, at least do a couple of days of riding, get used to it, see how your butt feels, and then plan accordingly. So this is our homestay for the night, which is good because it seems that it's warm inside, and yeah, it looks very nice as you can see. This looks really nice. We're happy about it because the room is warm, which was not the case in the last 2 homestays, even though we did have a lot of blankets. And the other thing that's nice is that I'm happy it's warm because I think I'm getting sick, or I was already sick, but now I think I'm losing my voice, so kind of sucks, but yeah, a nice rest should do the trick.
But first, we decided to go out and explore the city.
So my mistake was saying that we're going to Meo Vac when in reality we are in Dong Van, which apparently is a pretty big city with 80,000 people living here, and it does seem very lively, as you can see, even at night. Stumbled across this pretty interesting sign that says that so with 17 ethnic groups living inside the 2,300 kilometer territory, Dong Van, which is a UNESCO Global Geopark, has the highest human diversity in the world. So yeah, pretty interesting fact, I think.
We decided to stop at a local bar that had some nice craft beer, and were pleasantly surprised to stumble upon the preparations for Tet, the Vietnamese New Year. The next morning, after a well-deserved night of rest, we woke up, had some banh mi for breakfast, and continued our journey.
We're on day 3 of the Ha Giang Loop. We're leaving Don Van, going through Melvat, which I think we just passed. We're not doing the entire classic loop, I guess, but we're heading south to Ba Be Lake. We had the choice between going to Halong, staying at Chao Bang, and then going to Halong Bay, but we've decided against it, and yeah, we've decided to go to Ba Be Lake, stay there for 2 days, and then we'll head further south. So we're not sure where to, but we'll decide that at our next homestay. The plan for today is to cover a little over 200 kilometers, so it's probably going to take us about 6 hours. I think this is the road that actually goes back to Ha Giang at some point, I guess. The road here may be the best segment of the entire loop, in our opinion. Right now we've been driving alongside a pretty big river, and it's really beautiful. Another thing that's cool is you're passing a lot of small villages. Like at some point, like maybe every 5 to 10 minutes, you'll enter a village. So if you want to have some coffee or some drinks, it's a good place to do that. Thinking that you can do the loop 2 ways. You can either go from Ha Giang to Yen Minh, or you can do it the opposite way for most people. I think we did it the right way, so doing it as most people do, as this is the favorite part of our loop, I think it's good to keep the best for the end. Now, there are a few advantages of doing the loop the opposite way. One of them is that if you don't have an international driver's license, there's apparently less police checks if you're doing it the opposite way. And also, at the beginning of the loop, you'll have a lot of homestays that have organized tours. And yeah, you'll be stuck behind like a group of 15, 20 people, so it's not as nice. When you're driving the opposite way, you probably will not have that problem. But yeah, like I said, I think it's really nice to have this really beautiful, amazing part for the end of our trip in the north. I would say the one thing I regret a little bit is that I didn't take the tiny roads that lead to villages enough. I would definitely recommend you taking a little bit more time and getting lost on those little roads and, checking out where they go. They usually lead to small villages of the ethnic minorities of the north. But in general, I'm really happy. I mean, this was probably the most beautiful motorbike trail or loop, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever done. This is, I guess, what you expect from Vietnam, where you see all the beautiful, beautiful pictures, or at least from the north of Vietnam, and then you see it in real life. And this is one of the places where it's actually a lot better in person. I mean, the pictures and videos just don't do it justice.
And just like that, we arrived to our homestay at Ba Be Lake.